Hello, my name is Alex from Swoosh English, and in this lesson, we'll be looking at one of the OET blog articles that I've put together. This one focuses on including articles, how to write more accurately for the OET. So in this lesson, we will focus on guidelines in relation to when to use the indefinite, definite, and zero article, or in layman's terms, the, and, well, neither of the two. So in relation to grammatical errors, the most common omission students make relates to two of the most popular and yet often overlooked words in the English language, or un, and the. Despite the popularity of the aforementioned words in regular writing, they are almost never actually included in the case notes for the OET writing. This is because the case notes are written in note form, where it is common to omit articles. However, if candidates do not correctly use them in their letters, they will find their scores negatively affected. So let's have a look at some ways we can ensure we are using articles and that we are using them correctly. So the first step is that you have to make sure you check your nouns. We only ever use articles with a noun or a noun phrase. So if you're asking yourself the question, should I be using an or a the, it should always be in relation to nouns. For example, if you look at the sentence at the bottom of the screen here, it says, patient presented with severe bruises. In this case, you can see that we have two separate nouns. We've got patient, which is a noun, and then we've also got severe bruises, which is a noun phrase. So with these sorts of words, we're asking ourselves the question, do we need to use an article? And if so, why? So have a look at the top of the screen now, and it asks the question, are they singular or plural? Again, thinking about our noun phrases. Or un can only be used with singular nouns, such as doctor or disease. So if a noun is in its plural form, doctors or diseases, it cannot be used. There will be no in this case. The can be used with both plural and singular nouns. So if a noun is plural or uncountable, it will take either the or zero article. It won't be possible to use with a noun that is uncountable or plural. So that then takes us on to the next question. Is the noun countable or uncountable? So as mentioned before, or un can only be used with countable nouns, namely nouns which can be counted. So for example, one doctor, two doctors, one disease, two diseases. We can count these things. Therefore, if we use them in the singular, we can use a. However, or un cannot be used with uncountable nouns, namely nouns which can't be counted, such as information or anxiety. You can't say one information, two informations, or one anxiety, two anxieties, for example, because this would be grammatically incorrect. However, as previously stated, the can be used with both countable and uncountable nouns. So if a noun is uncountable, it will take either the or no article. So let's look at step 2. Are we being general or specific? This is an important question because using the indicates we're referring to something specific, whereas using a or no article indicates a focus on something more general. So if we go back to the sentence we were looking at on the previous screen, patient presented with severe bruises. Here's a question. Let's just go back. Which of these nouns requires an article, patient or severe bruises, or both? Well, actually, the answer is that we should have written the patient. The patient presented with severe bruises. Why is this? Well, it's because in this case, patient is something specific. We're not talking about just any patient. We're referring to the specific patient who presented with severe bruises. So we should use the in order to show that we're being specific. But what about severe bruises? Are we being specific here? At this stage, no. We don't know exactly where the bruises are or anything else about them. As a result, we do not use an article with this noun phrase. So, again, the correct sentence should be, the patient presented with severe bruises, correctly indicating what is specific, the patient, and what is general, severe bruises. As you can see from this graphic on the screen, we tend to start with the general and then move on to the specific. So we mention the patient right at the beginning of the letter. And once the patient has been mentioned, once we've given the name of the patient, we're being specific every time we use the word patient. With the disease or the injury, we start by mentioning it to begin with without an article, in this case, severe bruises. And if we mention it again, then we will use the definite article because we'll be becoming specific. We start with the general and then we move up to the specific. And this relates very much to step 3. Are we mentioning something for the first or second time? This is another important question, because if we're mentioning something for the first time, we're unlikely to use the. For example, with the noun phrase staph infection, which you can see on the screen at the moment, it says the patient is presenting with a staph infection. Is used because it's the first time the infection has been mentioned, and it's singular and it's countable. 1 infection, 2 infections. However, later on, you can see that in the letter that we're imagining is mentioned the infection. It now says the infection is now showing signs of healing. The reason we're using the in this case is because it's the second time the infection is being referred to. This is a key distinction between and the. And logically, it means that you should expect to use more as at the beginning of your letter and more thes as your letter progresses. This is because, as we are mentioning here, the occurs more often when it's mentioned the second time. The same is true, of course, when you use a plural or an uncountable noun, such as bruises. So if we go one more time back to our old sentence, the patient presented with severe bruises. In this case, bruises is being mentioned for the first time and is plural, so it takes no article. However, later on would be written, the bruises have begun to show signs of healing, with the being used because the bruises are being mentioned a second time. So here's a summary. You can see here you've got a table in terms of when and un can be used. So we can use and un when a noun is singular and countable, and when the noun has a general reference and or is being referred to for the first time. And un are not usually used when the noun is plural or uncountable or is being referred to for a second time or more. No article is when the noun is plural and uncountable, and when the noun has a general reference and or is being referred to for the first time. It's not usually used when the noun is singular and countable and or is being referred to for a second time or more. And the is when the noun is singular or plural and countable or uncountable and has a specific reference and or is being referred to for a second time or more. And it's not usually used when a noun has a general reference and or is being referred to for the first time. So we've looked at some examples specifically, and now we've looked at the general rules. It still can seem quite daunting. So the best way to become as familiar with these rules as possible is to engage in practice. And I want to finish the video by looking at a little bit of this. So you've got 5 sentences here. Imagine these are written in your referral or discharge letters. In each of these sentences, there is a mistake when it comes to the article. So I'm just going to give you a few moments to read the sentences, and I want you to try and detect the error in each case. If you're watching this video individually, this would be a good moment to pause the video before the answers are given. As you are working out the answers, also try to answer the question, why is it a mistake? Why does something need to be changed? So, here are the answers. Did you manage to get them all? If you look at the first sentence, the patient's arm was placed in a sling. Sling, in this case, being singular, just one, and it's countable. You can say 1 sling, 2 slings. So we need to use the indefinite article. B, the patient returned to my surgery with a further complaint. Again, we need a. Complaint, in this case, is the noun, it's singular, and it's countable. I addressed the complaint, but the patient was not satisfied. So now we're mentioning complaint for the second time. It was mentioned for the first time here, it's mentioned for the second time here, so we should be using the second reference to complaint. I suggest that the patient be referred to a psychologist. Psychologist, singular, countable again. And finally, I advised the patient that I couldn't provide further information on his condition. So in this case, we should be using a zero article, no article at all, because further information in this case is uncountable. You can't say one information, two informations, so we shouldn't be using any article. How did you do in that exercise? If you got them all correct, very well done. It's looking good for you in articles in the OET. If you made some mistakes, then do watch this video again. Also refer to the OET blog and keep practicing. Practice makes perfect.